wonderful people all over this country. She is a beautiful
Guyana will become the next Dubai, and we, the citizens of Guyana, are super excited to benefit from our homeland the same way the citizens of Dubai benefit from theirs.
This is what life is like for citizens from the Emirate of Dubai.
Guyana will become the next Dubai.
with wonderful people all over this country. She is a beauty, beautiful Guyana.
Good evening, viewers. Welcome to Globespan. Thanks to Nohar Singh and Devin for providing this forum for a discussion on things topical in Guyana. The subject matter chosen today is interesting and potentially contentious. And we have three speakers on the forum who I think can lend insight and a holistic level of expertise on the subject to shed some light and hopefully provide an informative conversation for us. In no particular order of preference, allow me to introduce, please, Mr. Albert Baldeo, who is a lawyer by training. He was a former prosecutor in Guyana and a former magistrate. He migrated to the States in 1986 and has gone into politics in a small way. He's district leader at Richmond Hill. We're very pleased to have him. Second is Mr. Gobin Harbhajan, who is well known on this program. He is a Burbetian. He runs a successful business there. He is an activist and a political commentator, and he manages an immigration consultancy in Berbice. Last but certainly not least is Mr. Collin Haynes, who is a healthcare practitioner. He started his own business based in Maryland under the company Development Associates LLC. He is also of Guyanese origin, having migrated from Guyana in 2004, being based in the States, but increasingly traveling back and forth between Guyana and the States in recent years. Also a well-known political commentator and activist. Welcome, gentlemen. I am sure that among the four of us, there will be material, there'll be grist for the mill for agreement and disagreement. So I look forward to an interesting conversation. The subject this evening is alleged discrimination, alleged nepotism, and alleged kickbacks on contracts in Guyana. It is certainly an area of central focus in Guyana now. There are a lot of complaints, a lot of rumors, a lot of niggles, and it's a subject that needs exploring in the interest of transparency and development of the country. Albert, if I can start with you, with your permission, can you give your take on the subject and how you view the current status, and if you think that there are problems, where the problems are, and what possible solutions we can look at?
Well, I speak here on behalf as an elected district leader. You know, you have to run for office here in this part of the world, which is the largest concentration of the diaspora of Guyanese who are living outside of Guyana. And hence, as a district leader, I am bringing the views of those who have contacted me on these issues that have become so, that are multiplying in Guyana. And as you know, we're in the threshold of greatness. And part of that transformation of Guyana is to ensure that there's transparency, accountability, fairness in the award of contracts, and that Guyanese, I hear this term repeatedly, gentlemen, that our navel string is buried right there. Only today I had the discussion with a few of my colleagues from Queen's College where I attended. Of course, Mr. Jonas' Tim's father, Prior Jonas, was a legendary teacher at Queen's College. And all those folks that, graduated there, we have found that there is a sort of like a padang. These guys have talked about contracts going to people from other countries, notably Trinidad and India, and they are eminently qualified. These are some of the top engineers and well qualified, and they've gone to Guyana. Some have packed up and come back, and they're very discouraged. And if you're going to discourage the best and brightest amongst us, then that is not going to be a good sign for Guyana. It's not a good sign. We've got to do better than that, and they've got to be welcome. And after all, even if you don't respect that our navel string are buried there, I think there should be more respect and more inclusion on the part of those who have come to America. And let me state this on the outset. A lot of people feel that people in diaspora are not entitled to go back to Guyana. Somehow they have lost their navel string or lost their birthright. And nothing is farther from the truth, because we have had situations where people accuse us of not being when they were doing this revolution, quote unquote. But they don't understand is that we are the people who made the revolution happen and free elections, because we were able to pick up the phone as American citizens, contact congressmen, contact the senators, pull the levers of power that are internationally respected, and have the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, be aware of what's going on in Guyana. So sometimes we have short memories that is not going to serve us well. And there's some degree of arrogance of those who come here and take the diaspora for granted. The diaspora is just asking to give back to Guyana. They're asking to be treated fairly, and they're asking to be given the opportunity. You remember these people came as second-class citizens here. They were always orphan children and stepchildren. So now Guyana is on the threshold of great things. They must be included going forward. And coming back to that topic, the alleged discrimination, alleged nepotism, and alleged kickbacks, there have been some alarming signs that has been happening. There's been no transparency, no accountability, no forensic audits, no public bidding. I have a string of things here: openness, public bids, non-secret. All these things must be publicized and made known. Let's go back to the regime that was there before us. You had to have a party card, as everybody knows, to get certain positions. But here now you have to be part of, and I hate to use this term cabal, but that has been the word that's been conveyed to me. And that's a serious term, that you have to be part of some inner circle. And that does not augur well for Guyana. So if we can put a stop to that here, if we can make Guyana one Guyana indeed for all Guyanese, and where we can ensure that the folks who are not born in Guyana are not treated any better right now than us, the people from the Caribbean who refer to us as the mud people, or people from Jonestown, and the derogations that we faced as Guyanese coming to live a new life. I feel for that, and I hope that there can be some change going forward in how this one Guyana translates into real empowerment and inclusion of everyone who is Guyanese first and foremost.
So you're seeing an exclusionary policy against Guyanese in the diaspora?
Well, I've had those complaints because just today I spoke to two engineers. One's a chemical engineer and one is an electrical engineer. They were involved in the roads that India built. Apparently India sponsored that road, the going up the, that long road there on the Suez Dike, the public road there to connect the airport. And apparently there were major contracts given out to folks from India. And I think that there were many qualified Guyanese who did get contracts, subcontracts, but I think they felt that they were more qualified to handle more. And they have handled more in a track record of building and development in the United States. And when we talk about building, I mean, all these mega structures here, the experience that they have brought, it is wise for Guyana during the interim or during the life of the oil money, which is going to be like 30 years, I understand, to bring them into part of the professional infrastructure, the technical infrastructure of this country, of Guyana, so that Guyana can benefit from its own. Because if Guyana doesn't belong to Guyanese, then who does it belong to? The Venezuelans or the British? We've gone past those and we're about to throw, at least hopefully we'll defeat Venezuela and their spurious claim. But at least we've gone back from the old British concept of colonialism. And therefore we should honor that. Our time has come. No longer should we be treated as outsiders in our own country, as people who are part of a caste system, as people who should not be included in the term Guyanese, or as people who should be shunned in their own country. That's the biggest mistake. And I think that I say that without apology. I find that when leaders come here, they think of us sometimes as people who are dependent on Guyana. It's the opposite way around. The barrels and everything comes and so forth, the technical help, the strategizing, and the political help also comes from the diaspora, now called the big diaspora here in Richmond Hill. And you know, we don't get anything, we don't get a respect, we don't get a due. We are very loyal, and I believe the time has come for us to take stock of how Guyanese are treated in the land of their birth, and not to be considered as people who have abandoned their domicile or their citizenship.
Collin, we started off in a way that for me was unexpected. I hear Albert backing a side that it had not occurred to me saw themselves as excluded as a group in terms of preference given in the award of contracts in Guyana, namely the diaspora. Do you agree with that position, and do you think there are other groups that you can identify that have an equal or greater claim to having been excluded? Or would you contend that there has been fairness and transparency in the award of contracts using the huge amount of money now available from oil?
Thank you. It's great to be on again. It's great to be with you. It's great to meet Albert, Gobin. Good to see you again. Certainly not. I think Albert's synopsis is very accurate and on point. I think the basis of it is that in Guyana, the average Guyanese doesn't know how, or there isn't the infrastructure in place. There isn't institutions in place for the average Guyanese to pick up one day, you know, someone who is a civil engineer to pick up one day and said, look, I want to be a contractor. I can go to GRA, I can go to do my NIS, I can go through the bidding process, but there isn't no hope at all that I would get a contract. Maybe ever in my lifetime, you would get a contract, because you're not part of the friends and family model, you're not part of the nepotism model, and you're being met on the spot with discrimination. So I don't think there's any part of what Albert is saying is anywhere incorrect. Now, in the aspect of the diaspora, as a member of the diaspora, I would say that I personally have experience going back home and working and lending my expertise. And it hasn't been a pleasant one. You know, one of the things we have is this tension, this pushback that you have left the country, we were struggling, and you have left. Some people left voluntarily and some people left involuntarily. I've known many stories of people, they had to leave or they would have died, all right? And so many folks have left, they've went on, they've did well, they've contributed to the world, to greater society. You know, you have the Sridhar Ramphals, you have the Mohammed Shabadins, you have the Eddie Grants, you name them, many Guyanese, many different disciplines. And the most saddest part of it is that you're unable to use those talents that you've acquired outside of Guyana to be able now to transform inside of Guyana. And oftentimes, you know, you hear about things like you have to wait your turn, you hear that you have left. And one of the things I admire that Albert is also saying, we're good to send the barrels, we're good to give the money, we're good to support political campaigns, but we're never good enough to come back home and contribute to the growth and development of the country. And that is sad, because if you look at many diasporas around the world, look at the largest diaspora in India, or look at other diasporas in other countries, they come back and play an integral role in the growth and development of their country. But each side of the aisle, whether it's the opposition or the government currently in power, they pay lip service to the diaspora and they don't make an effort to integrate them. And one of the things I want to also mention very briefly is integration is not one person, it's not two person, it's not 10 persons. Because oftentimes they will point to 2 or 10 examples and they say, oh, yes, we've employed this person, we've employed that person. That is not holistic. And so one of the overarching themes is the fact that Guyana is suffering from great and lacking institutions. And one of the only ways to fix this is developing institutions, because we've come, myself, Albert, Tim, we've grown up in Western societies and we've seen how institutions, when you step in, you become part of that institution, you grow, you develop, and you're able to effectively serve and be able to contribute to the greater good of humanity.
Gobin, we've heard an interesting angle on this subject. You and I, of the 4 people in this forum, we are the ones who are permanently here in Guyana, and the discussion and the criticisms made in Guyana about an exclusionary policy of the award of contracts, as far as I have heard within Guyana, does not focus on the diaspora, but there are other groups who claim to be excluded. What's your take on it?
Good night, gentlemen. I'm not going to put my neck on the block for any one here or any organization, but I can. If my memory go back, I think most of us in this forum would have been in 2015 campaign for the APNU AFC to be in government, and there was Diaspora those days back in the coalition also, and the AFC. And one of the thing from 2020 to now, yes, I would have heard the people from the diaspora saying that they're engineers and they have qualification of building, and as Guyana going towards that direction, and they have not been getting contract. I'm not agreeing with Baldeo on that statement. Why? Because right now, Guyana is on the verge of developing massive infrastructure. There is a shortage of contractors locally. We all know this. Now, yes, international contractors with big companies and big brand will take on big projects like the Magra Road or the Quarantine Highway. I don't think anyone can name me one local contractor can take on a 4-wheel lane route from Amsterdam to Prabhu Creek, unless you do it in phase with locals. However, the diaspora is fully aware of the agency called Go Invest, and the diaspora would have reached, many times I watch program, Jonas, overseas, where I see a big audience when minister left Guyana, and what I'm seeing is that these are happy campers, and they are making recommendation and suggestion, and they are told that in order to be in part of the development, you have to have your proposal, you take it to Go Invest, or you tender. Yes, there is a tendering process. If I sit here and say there is not one, then I'll be lying. You have a regional tender process, a tender board. You have most of these government agencies have tender board. Now, I see they put out last month, all over the 10 region, went down to Ministry of Finance. They all was lining up to put bids into build road, street, etc. Last year, there was 2,000 roads slated. That was completed. I see another 800. I see Region 10 put out another 100. Now, if the diaspora register, like my friend Haynes said here, that you clear your compliance and you do the right thing, and then you follow the procedure, I sure you will have contract. Because I want to one person name me that come into Guyana and bid for a contract and does not have a contract, because there is a big demand for contractors in this country right now. Because you're gonna find, yes, our local contractors for decades now have this little kickback business with engineers, etc. Foreign company coming in will be a plus for the government, because those company coming in, they have a brand, they have a name, and they will do the work to standards. So I don't see, or maybe until someone proves to me, that some of these diaspora people coming in the country and are not getting contracts.
Well, I think you raised what to me is the subject that needs to be focused on. It's well and good to say we don't think we're getting enough contracts, but the fact is you have to look at the system to see how the contracts are awarded. Because if you're trying to say there should be favoritism because we are Guyanese, good. If you're trying to say there should be equal treatment because although we are in the diaspora, we're still Guyanese, good. But at the end of the day, if a contract is there and bids are invited, there should be a process that the best qualifying bid wins and the contract is awarded to that person. And that should happen whether you're diaspora, local, Guyanese, non-Guyanese. Once there are pre-qualifying, once you pre-qualify and you have the lowest qualifying bid, you should win. And if that doesn't happen, to me, is only then you got a problem. So when you have a discussion as to whether there is discrimination, whether there's favoritism, whether there's corruption, whether friends and family benefit, I think that conversation has to focus on whether there has been an erosion. I'm sorry, let me start with the beginning. Whether there is a fair system created for the invitation of bids and the award of contracts, and whether, if there is such a system, that system is foolproof or it has been eroded so that corruption has crept in. And to me, that's the more important discussion, because I'm aware there are many groups that claim they've been excluded. As you know, the opposition went recently to speak to folk in New York to claim that there's been exclusion of opposition supporters, and the government was accused of racism and that kind of thing in the award of contracts. So from the point of view of the opposition, they're not thinking diaspora at all. They're thinking that the people that look like them are being excluded. Whether this is true or not is something that needs to be discussed. And again, it can only be discussed by looking at the system to see if it is foolproof, if it is transparent, if it is working properly, or if somebody's undermining it. So to me, I would argue that the discussion must focus on what the system is and whether that system can be undermined and has been undermined.
Well, I'd like to support what you're saying there, Mr. Jonas. And to his credit, President Ali, when he was here, I think the last time, he took out a pad and a pencil and started writing notes to the questions that were asked of him. Schoolboy style, I mean, like when he was back at State Stanislaus. I was very impressed with that. And I thought here's a proactive president. But coming back to the issue, similar to that, there must be some functionary, one of our well-paid public functionaries, to have a list published to the Guyana consulate and in the heart of the diaspora. All the shops, the West Indian Guyanese shops, make it available online apart from Go Invest and what have you, so the common man can understand what is there for him, what is available to him. How can I return home to Guyana? How can I return home and I don't have to pay duty that exceeds the value of the purchase of my machinery or my vehicle? How do I cut my roots from America, this great land of opportunity that treated me so well, and go back to a country that actually from which I ran because I was hungry, or because I was persecuted, or because I didn't live as a true Guyanese. I happened to be a refugee. So the question is, how do we make these things public and these opportunities? Not only, don't get me wrong, Gobin, I wasn't only referring to contractors. I was talking to medical stuff, legal stuff, all sorts of, down in every area, there's always a science involved or a vocation. And therefore, there are people eminently qualified in all areas, including the culture and the arts. Those names that I think that was Mr. Haynes who talked about them, those wonderful artists and so forth. All these things come into the quagmire, into the whole melting pot of development. Development is not only on one basis alone, but the entire concatenation of talents and skills. And I think Guyana's got to be more broad-based. And I couldn't help but notice in your in what you said, the sort of, I don't want to put it in a way that offends you, but it like these diaspora people, I don't want us to be seen, and I speak on behalf of them. I don't want these diaspora people to be seen as lesser Guyanese or lesser than anyone. from top to bottom. They must be treated equally, they must be treated fairly, and they must be treated as Guyanese who have earned the right to come back home. After all, they came to America, they left their homes. Guyana couldn't provide for them. You had blackouts, you had political persecution, you had refugees and stuff like that. These people deserve better. They are Guyanese at the end of the day. And it's a two-way stream. They're not coming for a handout. They're coming to help develop the land of their birth. And I will tell you this, behind me, the Gola arrowhead flies proudly, and I've never denied my roots. I've always been proud of who I am as a Guyanese. But at the same time, I have a duty as an elected official and the highest ranking Indo-Caribbean official or West Indian in Richmond Hill to make sure that the views of my constituents are heard. And that is why I preface my opening statement by stating that what I'm going to say tonight is on behalf of the diaspora and constituents that I represent in New York, the largest budget. And the president actually said it when he saw the crowd that came to him. He said we should call this Big Guyana, not Little Guyana, because of the amount of people who came to hear him. At the same time, there should be public dissemination of information. And also people, instead of standing up and taking pictures and so on, that's all well and good. But also have a line dedicated to those and a contact and a follow-up. Many people came and said, I'm skilled in transportation. I work with the MTA in city, New York City Transit, which is one of the most advanced systems in the world. I work in shipping, I work in aeronautical, I work in electrical engineering, I work in building engineering, I work in chemical engineering, I work in biology science. All these things must be catered for. There must be follow-up. There must not only be a handshake or a little social gathering and then all is well and good, and we say bye, see you next time. That is not how the continuity of development will progress. We have to have a better dialogue and better dissemination of information to the diaspora and other parts of the world, and also within Guyana itself, because if the poor man can read, not everybody can read and write to understand, go online, and some people don't have computers, some people can't even go, and some people don't have the electricity to run the computers. So this is like a sin. You withholding information, vital information from people, the poor people, and you know this term came up a lot to me today, Tim, this poor people. People told me that the poor people are not getting better. The poor people are not getting any wealth, they're not elevating their status. They keep hammering that to me. Poor people remain poor in Guyana. And why should that be? We're on the threshold of greatness, or supposed to be. So, you know, we have to pull up ourselves. We have to lift the country up. And it starts from the top. We have to build from the bottom up. And we have to inculcate the grassroots. They are true, and grassroots Guyanese are indelibly part of Guyana as anybody else. My father was a taxi driver. He was a hire car driver.
I'm going to interrupt you, Albert, because
that's where I grew up.
You've gone off on a topic. Let me interrupt you, Albert. You've gone off on a topic that is very important, that I don't think is connected at all to the award of contracts, unless you're trying to suggest that.
But I would say that
I want to bring it back into the
say that even
so
the
let's
poor
leave
people,
let's leave that very important subject alone. It's a nice political.
all right, but let's bring every Guyanese,
don't
whether
think
poor or rich, not connected or well connected, overseas or local, to get into to be able to do contracts and be part
it's
of
a nice soundbite, but I don't think it's on the topic. Gobin, is there a response you want to make?
Yeah. Mr. Baldeo, with all due respect, sir, you asked for a level playing field with the diaspora and Guyanese with opportunity.
I'm not hearing you so well.
All right, you hear me now?
Yeah, you speak up a little bit.
Yeah, what I listened to you saying that, you know, you want what's fair for the Guyanese who left Guyana, migrate to the US, and same as Guyanese here. If you ask me, I believe that the diaspora have more opportunity or more leverage when it comes to the diaspora coming back to Guyana. One, people in Guyana here stay here and they would go through the hardship, while some with the people that migrate, when they're ready to re-migrate back to Guyana, they have a duty-free or 2 duty-free of their choice, all house appliance, tax excluded. Now, isn't that something attractive for the diaspora to come in? You tell me which Guyanese, if myself wanted to purchase a vehicle, I have to pay the full duty for it. But the people, Guyanese, living abroad, we migrate to Guyana still have an upper hand. So I can't see where you say there's a discrimination. And
Well,
we have an embassy, the Guyana embassy in the United States, and you being a leader for your constituency or however, sure you have other Guyanese leader there, or you have diaspora member. They need to sit with these ambassadors or consulate there, and they work out, look, or what's online, or what's some of these contracts, or it doesn't have to be you get contract in all. You have IT, you have, like you said, the hospital, but you're not gonna find Guyanese go and place it up at all the grocery store and laundry mat overseas. So there must be, because when I see, like I said, I mentioned before, when I see ministers from the coalition side and this current government go to the United States, I see many faces. I mean, who criticize it now? Why these topics is not risen up there and addressed to get it done, rather than wait.
well, Gobin, let me answer that question.
Just a minute, Albert. You have more from
I think we.
But I'd like
we
to respond to what he said.
We have to add to this.
please.
So first, let me say to Gobin, I think Gobin of all people know better. All right, the tender process in Guyana is a formality. All right, even if you live in Guyana, I don't want to assume that from the diaspora point of view, we're just here complaining as diaspora members. No, I want to talk about the average Guyanese as well. All right, because that's where most of the people, and that's the people that should benefit the most. So the average Guyanese, like I said, gets up tomorrow morning, goes to NIS, goes to GRA, goes to the tender board, and submit their bid. I want you to tell me, Gobin, in all honesty, if they would get a contract. Because I could tell you no, because I could tell you that I've talked to many contractors back home. I've even been to the contractors and procurement conference, and all the small contractors at home are complaining about putting in their bids after bids, but they're not getting that opportunity. Now, one of the things you mentioned also is about this shortage, all right? So the current government uses this thing about shortage of contractors and shortage of workers. I don't think so. I mean, quantify it for me. I want you to tell me with evidence, with data, show me where the shortage is, Gobin. Show me. Because what I'm seeing happening is the shortage is being used as a moniker to be able to bring in foreign companies, to bid high for contracts, and to give massive kickbacks. All right. So there isn't any shortage, and if there is, you have to show me the data. And one of the things Guyana is lacking greatly, and if you really integrate the diaspora into the development of Guyana, is you'll get data, because the data right now, you can't even go back 3 years to get data about anything. You can go to any government portal or website and find out what are the percentage of contractors that are Black, what are the percentage are Indian, what are percentage are Amerindians, what are percentage are diaspora, what are the percentage of whatever. The data is also political. It exists with one group of people who control the data as well. And I know this very well from the Ministry of Health, and I've worked there, and I've worked with them for many, many years. And I've heard even international development agencies complain about this profusely, including US government, about this. Now, you talk about Go Invest. So the diaspora member wants to come back home, right? Sure, there is a program and there's a scheme in place, right? And they can get some concessions. But understand in context of business that you're leaving pretty much the biggest economy in the world. You're leaving a place where you're being paid maybe 5 to 10 times more than Guyana. And coming to do business brings a risk. And you want to be ensured that when you come home, that there is an opportunity where you can perform with the greatest ability to perform excellently and also minimize risk. Now, agencies like Go Invest, in my opinion, spend millions of dollars every year, but I don't see what the outcome is for Guyanese. I don't see the outcome for Guyanese, and I don't see the outcome for the diaspora. What major investment has Go Invest actually brought into Guyana? What? Which one? There is none. It continues to be a political arm just to pay lip service to the fact that we're doing integration. I myself made presentations, and many other people made presentations to go invest, and flat out we were told this wouldn't work. And that's not creating the environment for development. So the last thing I want to also say, there's a difference between remigration and integration. Remigration is picking up and coming to Guyana with your personal stuff, and yes, you get a car, you get a house, you got a car and all that stuff. That's fine. But then living there and integrating with the culture and being able to present your expertise, Gobin, is another story altogether. To be able to come to Berbice, to be able to help the people of Berbice, whether it's in agriculture, science and technology, infrastructure development, healthcare, whatever it is.
I just wanted to chime in here, Timothy. The problem we've had to is that this same tendency to think less of Guyanese diaspora as if America is a place you come to and you pick up gold. It's the proverbial El Dorado, the mythical El Dorado. Guyanese have come here and done 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet. This is no better roses. They've come here. Let me finish. A second-class citizen.
No, just a minute.
I think there needs to be a bigger understanding of this conception that Guyanese get a lot of benefits going back home with remigrant status and all of that. My point is that we've made a start. The government has done well in going there, but they need to do more. The government needs, and the Foreign Affairs Ministry needs, to disseminate information in a more bountiful way.
But you said on 3 occasions that there's a perception that the diaspora are less Guyanese than Guyanese who are here. But I haven't heard anybody else suggest that. And it seems to me that you're trying to defend a position that hasn't been attacked. I haven't heard a single soul. I certainly will never say that a Guyanese who happens to live abroad is less Guyanese than in Guyana. So why do you keep repeating that when no one has suggested it? Can you point to anyone who has suggested
that is the perception.
Just a minute. Can you point to anyone here or any occasion that a Guyanese has said, you in the diaspora are not as Guyanese as us?
No, not on this program, but I'm just telling you there is a general feeling and it's a general discussion. I would hate to restrict my
I'm sorry, I disagree with you. You see, you say the Guyanese in the diaspora have earned the right to come back to Guyana. I disagree with that. They had the right all along. They didn't earn it. They're Guyanese. They're as Guyanese as any Guyanese here, and therefore if they want to come back... Then why
do it sound as if they have to earn the right?
You are the one who said that. No one has challenged that.
No, I'm saying there's a general consensus out there amongst migrants who have gone home and had to come back.
Nobody has challenged. Why debate a position no one has challenged?
Okay, let's move on. I was just referring to the general feeling out there that we come to better roses. But you have to understand, we are the people who help Guyana's democracy. When people put down the diaspora, we have our own job to do, and we have helped to restore the Guyana's democracy.
I haven't heard anyone.
A lot of people tend to forget that and tend to push that under the rug.
You are once again arguing a position that no one has attacked. No one has suggested that, and I respectfully disagree with your perception that somebody somewhere is saying you're less Guyanese. I haven't heard it, and I don't feel that way. So I think we can move on from that.
I think this is a misnomer. I don't think anybody is any more Guyanese than the others. I think the problem is, and as one of the experts in Diaspora, wrote a book, Dr. Lair Matthews was saying, is that there is tension. All right. And I think Timothy and Albert, you'll agree, there is tension, and there's a perception that we've come out of the land of great opportunities, and we're there to steal some of their opportunities. So there's that tension, there's that friction that exists.
I hear you, Collin, and that I can see with, but I would like to make a couple points on that, because you touched on it and Albert touched on it. Now, first of all, there's this notion that we come to contribute to the development of the country. I'm sorry, I don't buy that. When a Guyanese leaves Guyana because things are hard and because he has a better opportunity or she has a better chance to get a better salary or start a better life elsewhere, he or she is not going to England or Canada or the States to contribute to the growth and development of Canada, the US, or the States. They're going to get a better life. and they're entitled to do that. And by doing that, they are showing that they got the get up and go mentality that many of us lazy folk back in Ghana never had. So power to them. But don't let's pretend we're talking about coming back to contribute to the development here. You're coming back to make a dollar. And
I
power
disagree
to you.
with you, Timothy. I
And power to
vehemently
you.
disagree with you.
That
It's
is
not
not a
about making a
criticism.
dollar.
But
Some of these people,
you know, Albert,
if I may add
I have
this,
to ask you,
if I may
on
add
this
this,
program so far, Albert, you have spoken the most. So please allow other people to conclude before you interrupt and jump in.
no, but you
Because
made a
you've had more
statement
time.
that I totally disagree
So,
with. When it comes to
so
market, there's no
please have the
guarantee they're going to
courtesy
succeed.
to allow me to
There's no
finish the
job waiting on
statement
them.
so that you can respond.
Yeah, but you just made a statement that they went for
interrupted.
opportunities.
And
None of
I'm
these
saying in this
opportunities are
forum,
guaranteed. You
we
need to
cannot all be
understand
interrupting
that
and
some people
talking.
just come here in a hope and a
You
dream.
are interrupting. You must have the courtesy to allow other speakers to
But you're
finish.
not allowing me
Please.
to speak. With respect to you not allowing me to speak, you made a statement which is incorrect. And it's not true that every Guyanese comes here. Let me finish making the statement, then you can add. Not every Guyanese comes to America with a golden platter or a silver spoon in his mouth.
Anyone else. So since you have had more speaking time so far in the show than anyone else, have the courtesy to allow others to finish.
Mr. Haynes, I want to address you with what you said about the tender process. I mean, the bottom line, you're saying that maybe there is a line for favoritism. Now, may I remind you? I mean, during the time we know each other, that you would agree that we have private sector, chamber of commerce in all 10 regions. These are businessmen, and I don't know how much of them are into politics. Maybe more than half. I don't know. Lately, we have the Canadian Chamber of Commerce in this country. I think we have a U.S. Chamber of Commerce in this country. If what you're saying, or which the angle you're taking, is true that the tender process or getting contracts is going towards the friends and family or favoritism, then these guys is here meeting with the opposition, they meeting with the current government, they invite them to the meeting, and they share ideas. I saw the president was at the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. So I don't know. I want to see a release or where someone is from the diaspora. Forget the infrastructure contract, or I'm talking IT hospital or wherever. Say that they put a tender. I want to read on the tender, and if the tender was not went to the procurement and get rejected under the grounds of what? Right. One of the other argument in awarding contracts is that I believe over the past few years, I should say, because I was on the coalition side, I saw the worst of it there too. It was not rosy there. Is that coalition member now presently, who I know, AFC members and APNU, is getting contracts. So the whole thing, what I read about what happened in Washington, and they say it's a reason. I can name most of the colleagues. I was a former treasurer for AFC Morbis and APNU AFC Morbis. So I know these guys, and they're getting contracts. So I want
one or two people is not the standard, Gobin. You
no,
continue to use one or two people, just like the government uses to establish all of them. That is disingenuous, Gobin. Very disingenuous, because you know why? The conference in Washington, as you were talking about, I don't think, and I know your angle you're coming with about show evidence. You don't have to show any evidence. The U.S. government has the evidence to show the awarding of contracts that has been one-sided. Now, healthcare is no different from bidding for a road, is no different from bidding to build a school, right? They're all going through the bidding process. It's a service that you're providing, Gobin, all right? And there is no clear requirements for the bidding of contracts in Guyana. There is no clear statement of work. What the government continues to do lazily, every government, is rely on foreign companies to write the statement of work for them, right? To continue to provide that silver lining for them, so that they can get the project done. So there isn't any, so like I said before, in the US or in developing countries, not even going to use the US, not Canada nor England, but pick any other country. If also you're going to apply for a contract, there is also what's called a minority underrepresented. There are people that I think in Guyana should get contracts. We talk about this thing about racism, and I think we always include just Blacks and Indians only. But what about the Amerindians? What about the Portuguese? What about the Chinese? What about those other groups of people? There should be requirements there, Gobin. I'm talking here from a technical level, all right, of when you walk through the door to any RDC or to the National Tender Board or to a ministry, there is clear guidelines. There is a clear statement of work that this is what you're doing. This is the deadline. This is the expectation. This is the requirements that are set out. Now, as a minority, as an underrepresented group, and every other group in Guyana pretty much would be underrepresented outside of Black and Afro and Indo-Guyanese, that they would also have percentages that are associated to giving the contracts. What about women? Women today would also come up and say that they are not being awarded contracts fairly. So Gobin, when I'm talking here, it's bigger than just, and I know you're going to reference this because I know you saw that post today where somebody posts one of our colleagues, one of our colleagues from the AFC who has a contract. Again, one person doesn't mean the system works for me. All right, the system has to work for every single person. That is what a system means. But you politicians always try to point to one person as the example that, oh, look, there's one person over there that's getting it. That means that there's equality. One Guyana, that's the moniker for one Guyana. That there's one person from another race that is getting contracts or getting a job or getting benefits.
Right.
It doesn't work.
The RDC process in awarding contracts, right? It's a simple process where both political party, RDC councillors is elected to sit on the board. So let's take, for example, East Berbice, which one? This is a big constituency with over 300 councillors, and the percentage of the opposition councillors there, they sit on the tender board for the region. You don't believe that when they sit and they open this tender, right? You have pre-qualified contractors, which they pre-qualify and they keep there for, work which the RU can give. But you don't believe when the tenders are open that the councillors that were elected on the board are being fair there, or you believe that for some reason that the opposition councillors has been blindfolded?
Again.
What I would ask, if I could jump in there, are you in a position, Gobin, to explain how you pre-qualify? Because I personally have a serious difficulty with how the rules change and the goalposts get shifted.
You pre-qualify by paying money. That's your pre-qualification. By giving the REO a bribe or large sums of money. And Gobin knows this very well. Gobin knows this. Like I said, all of a sudden Gobin become this politician, right? He his goal.
What I can tell you, one item that I've noticed, that I've seen, that I could not believe, but it's there, is that if the government has ever canceled a contract that had been awarded to you, that's a mark against you. Now, that's untenable because the government might decide without any fault on your part, they're not going ahead with the contract. But that cancellation, without more, entitles them to treat that as a mark against you. I'll give you another one. If the government finds themselves in court with you over a contract and its performance, so if you go to court for any reason, that's a mark against you. You don't pre-qualify. Now, think about it. If the government breached the contract, so you got to sue the government for your money, as has been done often, you could be right, the government could be wrong, and still, suddenly you don't pre-qualify. I have seen criteria, and I've given you two specific examples there, which are so unacceptable. The other thing that happens with pre-qualification is that if you know who the bidders are and you like your bidder, and you know your bidder might be weak on experience but might have a lot of machinery, you will award more points for the machinery. so that he comes in and pre-qualifies and looks good on the paper. So that the whole pre-qualification system needs to be subject to more scrutiny, better scrutiny. Another problem I have is that the Procurement Commission, when you look at the legislation, you talk about how there are members of opposition and supporters of government in the RDCs. But when you look at the Procurement Commission, it is 7 members, every last one appointed by the minister. So if you have a complaint and you're complaining to this commission and they get a lot of money, they get paid a lot of money in that commission, every last one appointed by the minister, what kind of hearing are you going to get? So if we're talking about defects in the system that allows the government to give preference to people and avoid preference to other people, isn't that where the conversation needs to be? That the system must be transparent and members of the opposition should be in that same procurement commission so that they can sound an alarm when things are happening that shouldn't happen. So that they should be in the forum that decides pre-qualification so they could sound the alarm. And if they're excluded, don't we have a problem?
So Gobin knows that at a regional level, I wanna go back to that when the tender board sits down, it's the REO, is the regional chairman, and who else, Gobin? It's like 3 or 4 people, right?
There's 5 of them. So the regional chairman don't sit on that. The REO is the only body, and then you have the 2 others from the opposition and 2 from the government.
And the government, right? So the REO now, it is set up now. The REO becomes the kingmaker, right? The decision maker. So whoever greases the REO's pocket essentially gets the contract. That's what it is. I know you know that, Gobin, right? Because that's what happens in Barbies, right? And so what I'm saying here is the process is not fair. Now, if you had standard requirements, right? If there's a clear, as Timothy is saying, clear pre-qualifications, and there is a system that is fair. And let me also say this, it comes back to ethics and moralities of our politicians. We have to look each other in the eyes and say, look, what we're doing is this developing Guyana, right? We're the fastest growing economy in the world, 400% increase of GDP, but people are still poor. 50% of your population still lives under $5 a day. It's not working because the level of corruption is seen there by these processes. It lends to that.
You know, I see you drift away from educated engineers who take 5 years in university to become engineers, some study abroad. Even if the RE or the tender board appointed by politically 2, 2, and 1, now the engineer who's supposed to be a level playing field decision maker with these contracts. Now that's, I don't know how much we got in the program. I want to talk about, we are talking about the diaspora which Baldeo bring. Maybe we should look, see if we can have some engineers from the diaspora come in and make them, you know, engineer for some of these regions. We do have, but engineer is misleading. Government have a good system. The system is there, but there's the people behind the system. I am a strong believer in that. But if you award a contract, and like you said, he went the other way, now the engineer will put that 2 mile more when he's supposed to be 1 mile. He had another mile or half mile to it, so that when he make his plans. So I would entertain more of a conversation from Baldeo if you have engineer abroad and can make, like, and I agree with Jonas, nobody coming to Guyana to help, but they come in to make a few dollars. Everything is about money. I know some businessmen in Georgetown who now employing at a rapid pace into stationery business. They're here to make money. They changed the way of stationery, like you walk in now is you deliver. So we having some of the diaspora bringing in ideas to that capacity. I believe that we need some of that, some of your engineer level to apply to these ministry and agency, and I sure the PS, it depends how it goes and the resume, that they can be fit in society, because Guyana is on the verge of development. And I will say it again, in Region 6 and in Region 5, there is shortage of contractors.
Well, let me answer you, Gobin. I'm one of the, we are some of the most patriotic Guyanese living here in the Guyanese diaspora. Secondly, we are not looking for political opportunity in Guyana to be president or to what have you. We're just here to build and to help and to give back. Don't feel that everybody who's coming there is coming to make a dollar. They're coming to give back. They're coming to give to the country they love. They're coming to give the skills they've acquired, which they could not have acquired in Guyana, and the regimes that perpetuated there, the systemic racism and institutional deprivation, which existed there, especially against poorer people. So basically what we're asking for, and I'm not criticizing the Guyana government to the extent that I'm saying they're doing everything wrong. I'm just asking for a greater expansion and dissemination of information to people over here so they can become familiar and get knowledge of what's going on. They, and especially those who don't have the ability to use computers or can read and write that and need help and guidance. And it's not only restricted to the engineering field. It also applies to healthcare, just about every area or vocation or training where they can contribute and help Guyana, even in the field of journalism, even in any field of our expertise. The American experience is invaluable. So don't feel people came here and didn't benefit themselves, or that they came here and met things that were very good to them. They had to work hard. They had to go to school and do a lot of jobs to get there. So I think I can ask that the diaspora be treated with respect. And it's not like they came here to a land that welcomed them. They had to fight hard to make a living. And if they choose to go back home, then they must also be welcomed back. There must not be other countries who give other people opportunities above the fellow Guyanese. And they must always be treated as a Guyanese. That's all I'm saying. And I do believe that the government has done very well in that respect. I'm just saying that there's room for improvement. I'm not saying they failed in their mission, but I think that there's expansion, because I've seen a lot of staff members come here, and I think they should disseminate and make themselves available to explain. Ms. Rasul was here one time, and she was very helpful. She took numbers, she took names, she took email. She was not using these forums as a means of political aggrandizement or enhancement. They were genuinely concerned about helping Guyanese in the diaspora, helping Guyana to get stronger and better, and not using these forums for their own selfish gains or other forums. All I'm saying is let the information go out there. That's all I'm saying.
Jonas, let me just add one thing. My experience with people from the diaspora during my time being the Prime Minister, represent a few board of directors, and even lately under the PDP administration.
I'm not hearing you so well, you're speaking softly.
You hear me now?
Yeah, put it back closer, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I tried to do. I mean, you hear me now?
Yes, I'm hearing you better, sir. Yes, thanks, Gobin. Sorry about that.
What I'm saying is that my experience during the coalition, and I know under this administration, people from the diaspora who is into the agriculture sector, because I'm from Baldeo, so predominantly agriculture, would have given land by the thousands of acres and hundreds of acres to go into cattle rearing. And over the years, they use this land and make it for real estate purposes. They make it into rice field, go back abroad and rent out these land. So you have this advantage and disadvantage when you have people from diaspora. Some may have the intention as you has that we want to help build. But how does the government or this government do? You damn if you do, you damn if you don't. Take for example, in 2016, I would have proposed all-weather road from the number 58 public road all the way to Kanji Creek, a 33-kilometer road. I mean, the coalition shelved it, the PDP administration, thanks to the JAG, they put that road a reality. That will open up the over 30-something thousand acres of land, and over 6,000 the family gonna benefit. They do it in 3 phases. These are the things that diaspora come and make the proposal, and somewhere along the line, they get some of this land, and what they do, Baldeo, they turn them into a real estate, and they pass on to the friends and family, and they rent this land for 20 to 30,000 per acres. So how you see honest, and that's where I use the word that some of these diaspora guys have intention to come and make money, and they say they come into.
I hear you, Gobin. It's a very good point, and that is why there should be some sort of mechanism to revoke those leases, to revoke those contracts, to have an overall, and the government has that power by eminent domain or by whatever means to ensure that they don't get profit like that. Whether it's Guyanese, whether it's diasporan, they must invoke the law, that there must be accountability. If you were given this land for agricultural purposes, and then we see it turn into real estate housing lots selling at break prices, then we take back our lease. We revoke the lease. And that's why part of this program, my understanding was there to be transparency. What are some of the alleged discrimination, nepotism, and kickbacks? This falls squarely into the topic that we're talking about. And that whenever there this kind of malfeasance, then the government should step in, or a regulatory body, and ensure that these assets are taken back by government and given to other people who have bona fide intentions and not for profit, and to help in what was the basic understanding. And that is why the government has got to be, cannot be nice to everybody, and must be able to stop this kind of exploitation of its goodwill. And I agree with you, and thank you for sharing that with me.
Even the flood relief, I want to go back, if you permit me, Jonas, and I'm taking up a lot of time. During the flood relief, most of these cattle brand, and I don't say cattle owner, most of this brand is 40, 50-year-old. The grandfather died and left this brand. People from overseas who would have come during the flood relief time and hatting up the Ministry of Agriculture and the minister that they lost cow and everything. Like you said, we need proper, like my friend Haynes was saying, proper data. Now you have foreigners coming in and they claim they lost animal too. So they did come back and scramble, buddy. Sometimes poor people come back and scramble. Even the rice field that they left General, right? Some the rice field they left General. Most of the rice field is leased and these people live abroad. So government need to look at that. Yes, definitely they will. So I don't believe the diaspora people have all honest and maybe have the same vision and thinking of you, maybe a percentage of them, but most of them is trying to see what they can get for generation to come. And I have a first-hand experience when the flood relief was sharing out, when because they are owner for the rice field and the person who planted the rice field wasn't getting the relief, right?
Again, Gobin, you use examples of a subset of people, a very small amount of people, to define a large group of people. This has been your team, this whole discussion, right? Now, myself, Albert, many other diaspora members, right? I'm currently talking to you guys from Japan. We can travel anywhere in the world. We can work many different places. We can earn lots of money anywhere. I mean, I think personally, I'm young. The future is just, there's many opportunities out there. So for me, Guyana is not about earning a buck. At least I could tell you for me personally, because I've earned that outside umpteen times and will continue to do that even in the next 20 or 30 years, right? But I think that many people I'm seeing, they love this country. They were born there. They were raised there. I grew up in Linden. I grew up in poverty. I know how is it like, and Tim, we've had this discussion many times, even in college in the United States, making ramen noodles in the sink. And Tim, we talked about cutting the mince in a couple ways. So knowing where we've come from and knowing the struggles and the lack of resources and coming to different lands where there's many resources and there are great functioning institutions and great functioning way of life, we say, well, why we can't get this in Guyana? Now, how do we become part of the solution? All right. And like I said, you read many diaspora written books. Dr. Lair Matthews, he's a diaspora expert in New York City. He's written a really good book. You should read that book. I'll bring the book for you. And he talks about these things. It's the affinity. It's sitting down and saying that many times, you sit down and you look at other countries and you see how developed, you see how they're cultured. You see how customer service is, particularly in a place like this, right? And you say, what would it take for us to be this? Because after all, a lot of people have interest in us. We're the fastest growing economy in the world, but then there is nothing to show. You have failing institutions, right? You have anything that is being given out is propagated by a kickback. There is discrimination. And like I said, the system is not working. But what I think also we have to do is we have to talk about, I think it's important that we have this discussion about the Washington, D.C. conference, right? And in context of that, we have to talk about what is the way forward to solve the problem? Because I don't feel that we should always talk about just the issues. I'm not somebody who just complain. I think we need to come up with the solutions. And one of those solutions, like I said, the government needs to walk into Parliament tomorrow and form legislation that will create clear requirements for the awarding of contracts, clear requirements. And if the government is committed to this, right, they would do it. They would do it tomorrow. But guess why they wouldn't do it, Harbhajan? They wouldn't do it tomorrow because they know that in doing that, they would disqualify their family and friends. So nobody wants to create laws to outbid themselves or outlast them or to prevent the money from flowing. And that's where the problem is. And that's why I think practically both of these two political parties, opposition and government, they don't need to see government again. I think we need to get new people in there who have that vision to move the country forward.
Talking about
There
legislation.
are three things you touched on. One in answer to Gobin, and I'd like to answer them if you give me the opportunity. Gobin, you made a criticism of diasporians. You said that a lot of them come back and then they hustling with brands and land and this and that. Let me tell you, Guyanese who've been here all the time, hustling with brands and land and this and that, and enjoying the corruption and trying their best to inveigle preferences from the government. Human nature is greedy. So the fact that you got some carpetbaggers coming back cannot attach a label to all of them. So that argument goes out the window as far as I'm concerned. Humanity is greedy. We are all interested in profit. And some who come back will be carpetbaggers. But let me tell you, they got a lot of Guyanese just as dishonest because profit is what it's all about. And this is why I also objected when Albert tried to say that there is some higher motive for the diasporans coming back. Humanity is greedy. They're coming for profit, but that's not a bad thing. The Guyanese who are here hustling for profit, it's not a bad thing. It's how it should be. But what Collin is saying, and I think this is where we have to keep nailing it down, is that in this capitalist quest for profit, there must be a level playing field, there must be transparency, and where we see corruption and favoritism, we have to find a system to eradicate it. So when he talks about Go Invest, and we know that Go Invest is peopled by personnel appointed by the government, we know who will get favoritism at Go Invest. We know who will get the tax breaks. We know who will get the preferences for the same land you're talking about that the carpetbaggers are coming back for. So to create a system for transparency, Go Invest has to have people from the opposition in it. And not just in it watching on, but in it with sufficient force that they can be an alarm sounded when things are going wrong. Because, Collin, and this is where I disagree with you, the legislation is there, it can be tightened up, but the system is there. But what happens is that the system can be undermined because every last person who is in there implementing the system is appointed by the government. And therefore, there is no scrutiny by the enemy. There is no scrutiny by the other people. The cat is watching the milk, and the other people are just as bad. You know it, and I know it. The other people, because they're outside and can't watch the milk, have no say whatsoever. If we can get both of them in there watching the milk, if we can get 3 members of the opposition on that procurement commission, if the same engineers you're talking about who make the assessments to pre-qualify can be rotated rather than that same person in the ministry saying, this is the engineer I want to select the pre-qualification criteria. If you have a core of engineers and you rotate them so that they don't have any choice which engineer is dealing with which contract, you suddenly start reducing the options that these people have, the scope these people have to undermine a good system. I'll give you another example. Under the procurement system, you got to invite bids publicly unless you got an emergency. And if you got an emergency, you can shortcut the system by taking 3 bids. You would be amazed the percentage of contracts awarded in this Guyana using the shortcut system.
But right.
They manufacture emergencies. And then what they do is they say, all right, we get 2 people from Harbhajan side in East Berbice to bid, and we get 1 person from Pomeroon to bid for this wharf we want to build in Pomeroon. How can the 2 people from East Berbice compete with the contractor in the Pomeroon who got all his equipment, all his personnel, everything right there immediately? So they have pre-selected and have predetermined who will win that contract. And the proportion of contracts awarded in this contract, bypassing the statutory formula and pretending there's an emergency, is horrendous. It can only be fixed if you have people from the opposition inside the game, monitoring and observing. You cannot have a 7-man procurement commission, all of them appointed by the minister, because the minister will appoint 7 friends, and that's what we see.
Well, Timothy, in reference to that, I think also some civic members of society, not necessarily opposition members, because there might very well be an impasse that cannot be resolved because of political considerations. So if you have like retired engineers or people of standing in these various professions, as obtains in many boards over here, they can also sit on these tender boards and do a good job. As a matter of fact, they may be able to approve people approve people in the same way. I would be remiss too if I don't object to the use of the term carpetbagger. Now, carpetbagger, as we define it in America, is like people who move from one place to another to secure political offices, stuff like that. It's difficult for me to understand the narrative of the using of carpetbagger to a Guyanese whose navel string is buried in Guyana, who grew up there, who for circumstances left Guyana, and then we refer to them as carpetbaggers when these same carpetbaggers send barrels home, they help Guyana, they help Guyana's democracy. I think we'd be doing a grave injustice if that name were to stick, that migrants are termed carpetbaggers. And I have grave objection to that term that you've used relative to people coming back. Like you said, make $1, many of them are coming back to give back. Don't let's forget that. As Mr. Haynes said, not everybody going there to hang them out for get a soup. Many people are independently wealthy or have accomplished and are willing to move on, but they always feel instead of me going to develop Switzerland or England or some other place, let me help develop the country of my birth, Guyana. So I believe that in that, I just had a point of contention there.
Well, 2 answers to that. First of all, again, I've objected to suggesting that somebody going anywhere to help develop the country. That is a myth. It doesn't happen. You don't go to Switzerland to develop Switzerland. And if you think you're doing that,
wait,
returning home?
Everything you develop a country.
No,
why not?
The second thing I want to point out is the expression carpetbagger was not used to describe all diasporians. It was used to describe those foreigners who are coming here without the skills, without the resources, but seeking to use preference because of their relationship with the government so as to get contracts and make a profit. Now, the expression carpetbagger actually developed after the American Civil War, where people from the North went down to take advantage of very cheap land, very cheap arrangements in the South. And they were known by the fact that they went with bags made out of carpet because that's how they were identified. And the expression is what it is. It is someone who is coming to make a quick deal, a quick dollar, because they know that there's an easy, cheap opportunity there, often unfair. It was not used to describe diasporans. It is an expression that says some of these people who are coming are carpetbaggers. I don't know why you're pretending there's
I appreciate clarification. I just didn't want irresponsible speech of that nomenclature to stick to Guyanese diasporans. And I'm glad you clarified it.
No one is attacking diasporans.
All diasporans. Let's move on. Keep on topic.
I want to put you on the spot here. You know, you and I would have been campaigning, and I'm sure we have. I don't know, my 2 colleagues in the program would have campaigned 2015. One of our campaign driven was corruption and change. Policy, legislation, like you said, that needs to be changed if you go to Parliament tomorrow. But after 2015, I remember in the last program I was with Jonas, he mentioned Patterson is making a lot of noise about changing legislation and policy, etc. We were there. Nigel Hughes was tasked with it with a few others. 2016, they shelved it. Now today you have the same opposition come in and cry wolf about things that when they go in and find it rosy, stop here, because as a young politician then in 2015, I hold a good position in Borbis with the AFC. And what happened, what do? I hold on to a position as a prime minister of a few board of directors and RDC council. I have to black bullet with my own opposition colleagues. I was in the press when a $120 million contract was awarded without not even going to the tender to slash the road shoulder one group of people. I nearly, the three minister wrote me up to be fired. When the chief of staff leaked the email to me, I said, go to hell, I'm not apologizing to nothing. I stick with one principle: once it benefit the people, I will. And I don't, as an activist for development and ID, I don't want to see government fail. I live half my life already, and I want to see, even this current government, that's why I push ideas and development, ideas to them. And if they take it, they use it, but once the people benefit from it. And so far, so good. I have a bad experience, and when you, Haynes, was applying for that position where you was applying at the hospital, and when you were shelved, that thing really upset me until I reached you about it. If a man like you was sidelined, who came to Guyana to do and contribute towards the development in the health sector, and you was pushed aside, then I was very angry about it. I don't want to go beyond that because I don't want the liable catch me, etc. But what if I did after the Google?
I'm not suing you, Gobin. You're talking the truth. So I want to say that I agree with you, and I agree with Tim. Both sides of the political aisle. The opposition's only calling card now is to complain, right? As any opposition in Guyana, they're capable of doing, just to complain. And while they're in government, and that's why I keep on saying that I think Guyana is going to go through this very bad cycle, unfortunate cycle, because there isn't a proper system of institutions, right? Where there's training and education on a particular subject matter, where there's research and data to back it, and then there's delivery of it in a very effective and efficient manner. So every time you see politicians are coming, even you talk about the president, Albert, coming, many of these politicians, they come up to Richmond Hill, they go to DC or wherever they go to, and there is no recourse to really integrate the diaspora, because all they do is they go there, they get overwhelmed by everything that people are saying, and then they feel it's just too much for them because they've put no systems in place to be able to solve it in Guyana. There was a few different things they tried. The Diaspora project was one of that a few years ago. I interned at the Guyana embassy. Whatever happened to that, I don't know. But we have this thing where everything is done piecemeal, and when there is a massive rush, as Guyana is getting now, they become confused, they become disenchanted, and they just don't want to do anything about it, and they just let things go as business usual. So when I'm talking here today, I'm not talking, I've left the AFC many years ago. I'm not opposition, I'm not government, right? I'm talking here as a Guyanese person, and I'm talking and I'm saying that even if the opposition came into power tomorrow, I don't think it would change. Now, I want to say that coming to DC with the conference that they have, the opposition that came up to DC, it's the same thing. The opposition is clueless. They don't have a plan. They don't have a concrete plan to develop. What they do is they're coming and they're complaining to foreign actors as if they can change the trajectory. The trajectory of change for the opposition is in Guyana. If you really want to see the changes happen in the procurement process, all of those that have come up there, they're member of parliament, they go to parliament and they take a bill. And even though the bill doesn't get passed, or even though they can actually say, look, we've come up with a solution to the problem. Here is the solution. And here is what the government doesn't want to get done. We've made our demands. But you don't complain and have no plan. And the only calling card is just to come to a foreign actor and to beg and ask them to be able to intervene on your behalf. And while I agree that America is, the land of democracy and freedom and peace, and it's well respected and admirable, Guyanese people and Guyanese elected officials need to solve Guyanese problems. That is the reality. That's why we elect them. We don't elect David Patterson, Cathy Hughes, Aubrey Norton, and all these guys when they get elected to come to ask somebody else to help them to solve the problem. And the same happens for the current government in power. So this is where we at right now, and I think it's a very sad place to be in as a country, because you have a government that is out of control, doing what they want, and you have an opposition that has no plan, no recourse to be able to solve these problems, but to beg outside foreign actors. And like I said, they have a constituent. They have a 40-something% of people. Why don't they use that as the calling card for activism?
That's an interesting statement, Collin, and I want to take up from that. We only have a limited amount of time left, but what you have said begs the question for me, and this is how I want to approach it, if you agree. There is no doubt, and I think everyone in this forum has agreed, that the system is skewed, that the government of the day enjoys all the power and therefore doesn't change anything. So right now you've described the government as out of control. They're awarding contracts to their own people, by their own people, enjoying it all. And we know perfectly well that before 2020, the government of the day was doing exactly the same thing. They were awarding contracts to their own people. The money hadn't started yet, but the government remained the largest contracting party and the largest employer, and their folk benefited. And we're seeing it again now. So we're seeing the lack of transparency. We're seeing the corruption. You say there needs to be a system. We can't rely and say, well, we need good people, because I think we'll agree that human nature is greedy, and a system has to be more important than the individuals. So my question to each of you, and I'll ask each of you to answer in turn, what is the solution to our dilemma that both large parties, when in power, refuse to change anything because they control parliament and the laws allow them to appoint people to those key positions and therefore prefer their friends and family to the exclusion of the other folk? What is the solution? Can I start with you, Gobin?
I'll go with Haynes, but let me put some thought into it in a minute.
Albert, can I start with you?
Well, I think that we have to build on what the government has started, what has gone. They're legitimately entitled to the power that they hold. At the same time, I was very encouraged by some efforts to expand and to include, but greater has to be done, especially in light of the unity we need to show with the Venezuelan controversy. I believe that President Ali has shown some visionary leadership. However, he has to continue to build on that. His ministers need also to be reshuffled, or even those who are not performing and performing to the way of including all Guyanese. This one Guyana concept must not only be a symbol, it must also carry weight. And it must involve all Guyanese from wherever they may be, and especially the poorer Guyanese who have always complained to me that they are only getting poorer while rich people with connections are getting richer. We have to continue to encourage them. We have to continue to demand these things or to ask for them: transparency, audits, revocation of contracts that have been abused, and also to make sure that Guyana is free for business and also fair to everyone, and that everyone can continue to help Guyana, whether within or without. It's very important. Make use of all the resources within and without, and help Guyana move forward. Change the mentality towards overseas Guyanese. Welcome them with open arms. They are your brothers and sisters' keeper. They are not necessarily, as some people have referred to them, as people coming to make a dollar. Some of them are coming to enhance and enrich Guyana, and we must be proud and thankful for that. They must not be subjected to Trinidadians and and Indians in other parts of the world, Venezuelans, coming there and getting a better deal than the Guyanese whose navel string is bared in Guyana. I wish the government well, but I would encourage them to have more dialogue with Guyanese and with everyone to make the system work, make Guyana work. Don't let's go back to the days when we had these problems, especially with the oil money contract, the mother of all contracts. We got to, try to start from there and move on so that we can have skills, and we can have appreciation of people's talents and welcome in arms so they can come and help build Guyana. We need that. Guyana needs that. The people would like to see that. By communication to you as an elected district leader of the largest diaspora in Richmond Hill is to encourage that kind of dialogue, encourage that kind of dissemination of resources and also jobs for people to know and to come and welcome them. Don't let the duty concessions be more than the cost of the vehicle itself. Don't award contracts to people. It will be heavy criticized, and I mean no pun intended when I said there'll be a lot of critics out there, no pun intended, when you have these sort of contracts awarded to people that don't show the kind of expertise and experience in those fields. So I wish Guyana well. We will continue to do what we have to do to help Guyana, but just remember that there must always be that kind of recognition and appreciation for those who work without fear, without opportunity, without favor, and we're just doing it from the bottom of our hearts as patriotic Guyanese.
Collin, you've heard Albert talk about the need for more transparency, the need for a level playing field, the need to reshuffle and even get rid of some ministers. The problems inherent in the system, but also use the expression visionary leadership. What is your take and what is your solution that you would propose to the problem that has been nailed down, that each party in turn enjoys the perks and will corruptly benefit from the perks?
I think over the last few years, I feel like John the Baptist, the voice crying out in the wilderness.
He lost his head.
Yes, he ended up losing his head too, right? So I think that it is not, from time to time we hear politician leaders talk about things are going to be done. Sure, the president has a vision. I never question the president's vision. I never question the president. I've said publicly I like the guy. I just don't like the people behind him. But nothing could ever be done. So if we're talking about healthcare, agriculture, technology, GPL, GWI, GT&T, there wouldn't be no improvement in the lives of Guyanese people if we don't fix institutions. And no politician to date, including the president, has come out and said the need to strengthen up institutions. I talk to many of them from time to time, and it seems like I'm talking a different language to them. The reason why we as diaspora members can come out here to United States, leave Guyana, there's no superpowers that we have that are different. The only difference is that when you come here and you come into academia, or you go to school, or you go into the workplace, or wherever you go and you work, you go into an institution, a place where there is learning, there is growth through research and education and data. Driven data is important because what data does, it points you to the problems and it shows you also the solutions that are possible. And then how do you deliver this to be able to effectively make that particular area better is through customer service. And as you know, in Guyana, that is not something, you go to ministries and you feel like you're actually serving them. They're not serving you. Our politicians themselves, have you heard them? They also talk like if they're serving, that you're serving them when we're paying their salaries. And when I say we, all of us are, because even if we land there in Tamari Airport, we're paying taxes to come to Guyana. We're spending money there one way or the other, and we're contributing to the economy. So it seems like we're talking about all these good things that Guyana is doing, but I am not optimistic that any of this will ever change if we don't fix the institutions in Guyana. Institutionalization is a must. An agency for institutions, I think, probably needs to be set up and needs to be run by somebody who is competent, and also needs to be able to have clear vision, clear outline, objectives to be able to move forward and to develop the country. Because like I said, if we're talking about electricity, water, television, education, whatever it is, healthcare, whatever it is. If your institutions are failing you, and the institutions are failing us, Gobin, because the institution doesn't allow us to be able to effectively have contracts that are going to have the best set of people to be able to get the job done. So I believe that the way forward here is building strong institutions so that beyond a politician, beyond the diaspora, beyond anybody else, it will develop the country. So anybody who's coming in, there's a clear path, there's a clear vision to develop Guyana.
Gobin, we heard Collin and his solution. Well, I don't think it's a solution, but what he advocated is we need to strengthen our institutions. Now, that resonated with something Albert had said earlier. Collin went on to say that we need to have good and competent people in place to make the decisions. And Albert had earlier talked about using people from civic society, trained professionals, and installing them in those commissions, on those boards, to be part of the decision-making process. But I think the point has been made very clearly in this discussion that if you have a procurement board and all 7 are appointed by the minister so that he gets to control that process, who is going to make the decision to put independent, competent people from civic society on those boards if the minister can put his friends? And to go back to what Collin was saying, how do you strengthen your institutions if the government can make the law that says the minister can appoint all 7 of them? Who is the one who is going to bite the bullet, who is going to grasp the nettle and say, I have the integrity, not to appoint 7 friends, but to appoint 3 people from over that side in the opposition and 1 independent person. So I take away from my own self this power to appoint and control the system. This is why I was saying I didn't see it as a solution. But what do you see as a solution to the problem that we have, Gobin? That the people in power enjoy the power when they're there, and therefore our institutions are crumbling.
Well, I mentioned it, what happened in 2016, but my contribution and suggestion to this is that we have 65 members of parliament. They all are policymakers. They represent different constituency. They won the constituency, and they hold a key position as member of parliament. I have nothing against the government of Guyana, His Excellency Irfan Ali and the Vice President Jagdeo, but you still have independent. When I mean independent, you have individual in parliament who hold position and can draft and table things in parliament. Sometimes we have to send some pressure on our parliamentarians to either one or how much represent which party. But at the end of the day, we see what happened in 2019 when the no confidence motion. So I still believe you have some independent thinker in there. So I will put back the buck at parliamentarian to be more proactive and do what's best as policymakers for the country. There is no one silver bullet can fix everything, but I believe at the end of the tunnel there will be a bright light for Guyana someday to come.
Thank you for that. Again, I will express reservations because what you have done to me is, to my mind, is the same as what Collin has done, which is to say, you got 65 people there, let us hope somebody steps forward to do the right thing. But I think we know that you don't have 65 people there. You have 33 and 32, and therefore you lose. Because the 33 have never, in Guyana's history, with the one exception of Charandas, have never voted against their party, and have never therefore said to the minister, you're on my side, but I don't think you must appoint all 7 on the procurement commission. Therefore, I will vote with the opposition to allow them to appoint 4. It has never happened, and therefore to pray for some miracle that somebody will vote their conscience, if those 65 members, I think we got another 60 years of trouble in Guyana if that's what we're waiting for. But there needs to be a solution. Gentlemen, thank you very much. I enjoyed our discussion. Like any discussion, a good discussion needs people to disagree so that all views can be expressed properly. And to our viewers, I thank you for your attention. I hope that if you see any solutions, you can propose them so that we can think about them. The solution that I see is that there must be a minority government and there must be a majority opposition in parliament. And that can only happen if there is a permanent third party or third parties. Our problem is two parties. There must be three. Maybe one day that will happen so that there is a permanent third party, not one that is joining up with one of the two large ones to reduce it to two again.
Well, Mr. Jonas, rule by minority has never been a democratic principle, so I certainly won't agree with you on that. The majority rules.
Well,
If you're ruled by a minority party, then that would not be democracy.
Guyana's had 60 years of that.
And that certainly will not reflect the will
we
of
have
the
the
people.
best and brightest like Albert and Collin running away and going to greener pastures.
I've not run away, sir. I fought my own battles here. And trust me, it takes a special special Guyanese with Kenna to come to America and then go where I've gone. There was no PPP party, there was no PNC party for me. I had to build from the ground up.
And my closing statement, I'd like to appeal to all diaspora people. Guyana is just so you have, United States, is seeking a greener pasture. Our country had, for the past decades, 30% of our budget is basically a free education. Some of the people for decades now take the free education and skills gone abroad, better themselves. I mean, I would like to encourage them to come back to Guyana to contribute towards the development of our country.
Yeah, I just want to say as well that I think that, we're talking about discrimination, but I've thought about this recently. The last 60 years, we have voted for two political parties along racial lines. We've complained when they haven't delivered on the promises, and we continue to vote those two political parties in power every single time. If that is not the definition of insanity, I just don't know what it is, doing the same thing and expecting different results. So people also tell me, they say, Collin, what other excuses do we have? I say there's 10 other people who are running for president every time. I mean, pick Timothy's party too. I mean, just pick someone else, because two political parties right now, they failed the country in the last 60 years. They haven't developed development, and I don't think they will, and they're not committed to institutions.
But isn't there a democratic process there, Collin, for them to elect Timothy's party to government?
Yeah, and I think they should.
That must be the standard bearer for elections.
If you find that you're saying that you don't have a choice, you do have a choice, because there are more choices on the ballot every single time.
Yes,
but then
Timothy has got to go on campaign like I did in America here. There was no party here for me. I built from the bottom up. I made history. That is why I gave Guyanese a voice in American politics.
I'm sorry you introduced Timothy into that conversation.
I didn't want to introduce Timothy. I was just saying Timothy's part.
I'm not here in that capacity at all.
Yeah, they can. Well, we can start a party from the ground up, or do like what I did in America.
I mean, any other party.
What Albert, who doesn't allow anybody else to finish a sentence, failed to acknowledge in your very true statement, is that in Guyana we vote race, and we have two race-based parties. So nobody gets an edge in until there are enough in the middle class, enough neutrals, enough unbiased, and enough perceptive people to swing it, as we did in 2011. But it is very difficult because we vote race. Anyway, I think that's enough of that. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I will take my leave. I want to say thank you to Nohar, thank you to Devin for accommodating us and for allowing what was an interesting, if somewhat controversial, discussion this evening. It was a pleasure talking to you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Globespan.